Hi, we're live here on Facebook Live. Good morning, everybody. 9 a.m. here in Chicago, 3 p.m. in the United Kingdom. And we have somebody from Indonesia with us a little later on. So it's about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night there?
Yeah,
9 p.m. there. So across the pond, Darren and Steve. Darren, how's it going, mate? What's happening?
Yeah, fine. It looks like we've got a different kind of virus from you guys. We've got protests going on. We've got statues of people who were involved in the slave trade many years ago being pulled down and thrown into docks or rivers. Yeah, it's all Black Lives Matter is the main focus now. We're still talking about COVID-19 and that, but it seems like protests have taken top priority.
Sure. Listen, there's so much going on in the world right now, as you say, around all of the social issues about, I think people have been locked up for a long time as well, and there's some anxiety and some kind of pent up aggression around lack of human contact and so on. And I think that's spilled over into what's going on. I saw at the weekend, stuff going on in London. Obviously, the protests here have been in recent days have been peaceful and well organized, and people are really getting behind it. And I know we're going to maybe touch on some of that when we introduce our guest today. Our three tips this week as well about doing a deal, everybody, and we're going to give you some insights into marriages made in heaven as opposed to divorces waiting to happen, as somebody once described doing a deal to me. So. With that, no, nothing to do with that. No, we don't do marriage guidance here. No.
Okay, thank goodness.
So, who's our guest this week, mate?
So I've got Ryan, who's when I say across the pond, you're in Chicago. He's originally from Canada, but yeah, he's based in Indonesia and serves the Asian market.
Let's bring him in. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. Very well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for joining us so late as well. Being 9 p.m. is great to be joining. So
we get plenty of sunshine throughout the day here, so it's there's lots to go around.
Well, when you're in marketing, we're working all hours anyway, to be honest. So we're used to it. Yeah. So, Ryan, I don't want to give. Sorry.
Just starting the second shift now, 9 o'clock. Yeah.
I've worked with Ryan for a couple of years on a particular client. Ryan, I don't know if you want to give a quick overview of what you do, what TWOMC Digital is.
Sure. TWOMC is a digital agency, and I know that gets loosely thrown around, but essentially we do strategy and then a number of areas of execution. So video, we do all of it in-house, and that's drone video, 360 video, any type of video. Then social media, that's part of the strategy. That goes in there too. We do a lot of execution on that, planning, making sure it ladders up into the larger marketing plan and not just some kind of bolt-on feature. And we've been investing heavily and getting into XR, which is everything under the sun, from 3D hologram tables to virtual reality to 360 video, but interactive. So that's the low-hanging fruit there is training. But across the board, we've kind of found ourselves over the years with a funny mix of clients that always seem to be in either the training and development or education space. So whether that's the government in Canada and their objective to upskill, say, older generation baby boomers that were in the steel industry, how to send an email, all the way to today upskilling the tourism industry in Indonesia, the staff of your hotel in Bali. How do we use VR to do that? So we have an education prism that we look at through everything, which is I guess that's we don't have to do any corporate CSR because that's part of our core mission. We're educating people, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. So who's your target market for the 3D type videos? I mean, is it something that's retail retail tourism focused mostly?
Well, there's the 3D hologram table is a specific piece of hardware. It's developed by the OEM for that is our partner Euclidean 3D, or sorry, Euclidean Holographics. They just changed their name. They're out of Australia, and the table is you could call it AR. In that you wear some light glasses, you don't wear an HMD head-mounted display, but the XR, the glasses that you're looking at must be pointed, and you must be focused on the table. The table has got a series of projectors and a kind of a prism plexiglass medium. So the glasses and the table work together to give you like that, I want to say Star Wars hologram type of thing, but it's better than that. It's not faint. It's not transparent blue. It's solid colors. It's very much like Google Earth when you're looking at it. For example, we have some content from NASA. NASA is one of the clients that has purchased this hardware and use it to find a landing spot for the next Mars mission.
Wow.
We have the planet Mars in a scan from NASA, and it's down to the 10 centimeter resolution scan, so very detailed. And yeah, pretty much anything you think that would be cool on there, like the human body, a CT scan, for example. We had some doctors come in the other day and give us a CT scan, and the software, which is proprietary, is so robust that you can just take something off of the shelf like that and it converts it for the table. So the sky's the limit.
Brilliant.
And the practical applications of that in business, Ryan, what are they? I mean, how does that affect somebody like me, in a marketing role or
Sure.
a retailer? What's the practical applications of that?
Sure. Well, if you're in they call it the architecture, engineering, and construction space, the AEC space, whether you're planning a city as a master planner, Jakarta is moving their nation's capital to a place in Kalimantan, which is formerly Borneo.
Okay.
So a master planner like that, or say an architect or a construction engineer, you want to have a good bird's eye view and see certain things in situ. You definitely want to see, say, for example, something's already been built, like an oil refinery or a plant of some kind. There's usually a discrepancy between the plans and then what was actually built. So you could look at the documented plans. Then if it were if it was a productive thing to do, you might LiDAR scan or laser scan the entire facility and then see where those discrepancies were. That effort would give you certain benefits, but where this is all going, I believe, and what's exciting for me is it's the venue to store your smart city data in.
Okay.
Smart factory, smart facility. So we're working with SAP, for example, as to develop another offering. You've already got an ERP like SAP. Then you already have certain data points that are feeding in passively. And we're just going to add data points to offer other benefits. Like, say we know how many bags you ship. Mm-hmm. Well, we could say, how are the ball bearings on that conveyor belt doing? Is the PLC from the basement pump telling us that pump's gasket's got a lifespan of 2 years and you're nearing completion? And you can start to do total predictive maintenance on your factory. See that in situ, right? So your supervisor wouldn't have to be on the floor testing everything. Your supervisor could, in fact, handle maybe multiple facilities because he has a dashboard and can see in situ where the trouble is, where the troubles may lay. And of course, if you extrapolate out to an entire city block, an entire city, you could see how certain metadata coming from certain facilities would impact zoning regulation or whether or not we build another power plant, for example.
Fantastic.
So,
fantastic.
Yeah, that's where we're imagining it. Of course, it's a pretty cool video game too. I mean, that's what it was designed as an arcade game. So That's
That's,
fun.
that's the most important. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you could literally save millions of dollars in preventing issues from happening in manufacturing processes, for example, because you can do the preventative maintenance and predict when things are likely to break, or I guess fix them before anything calamitous happens. What we're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, let's say you have a simultaneous an ongoing high fixed cost business, like you're a steel mill and you've got a blast furnace running and you're slab casting, shutting down for an hour is $250,000 an hour, right? So being able to have all the PLCs from all of those different rolling pins telling you, then the computer takes that data and then says, you know what, we should shut down from June 8th at 8:15 p.m. for exactly 2 hours. The crew's got 2 hours to fix these problems. It's optimizing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So a Canadian in Indonesia. What took you to Indonesia? The work or just family life? How did you make the journey?
This is the story's quite long, but if I give you the Coles Notes version, I've been in Asia for 20 years now.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I left right out of university. I actually did my last university course in Japan, correspondence. Finished it off, and then was working with the Rotary Club International at the time, and then that led to a stint in Taiwan. Spent about 7 years in Taiwan, and started. We were doing video production there for very much corporate schlock, very much, silly ads. But we were doing quite well. We had some ads play during the 2003 World Cup, I think, in Taiwan for a hair loss remedy from Italy. I remember shaving male pattern baldness into my head and then having a wig blow off, and I was acting.
Right.
Made a few bucks, but that led to my first company, and that was Cocktail Cool.
Okay.
If you have a nightclub and bar in Asia at the time, this is like 15, 16 years ago, it's very hard to find a guy who can make a cocktail, a decent old-fashioned, for example. So an American friend who was a bar owner was constantly being flown all over Asia to train up the bartenders at the Ritz-Carlton or your flagship hotel in Shanghai, wherever it is. Mm-hmm. So over many beers, we decided that, it would be more practical if a company like Diageo would pay for the production of a DVD. This is back in DVD days. Mm-hmm. So the Ritz-Carlton would pay us to go in and shoot my business partner, Mike Armstrong, making the drinks, providing the extra layer of finesse, like, did you know where Grand Marnier is the last privately owned spirit brand from France, right? Providing that extra touch for the bartenders, and essentially their menu were the buttons on the DVD. So if he gets poached by the nightclub down the road, you've still got the training as an asset stored in DVD format.
Excellent. Interesting journey. Now, before we came on, we were chatting about, obviously, the social unrest and everything that's going on in the world. You had an interesting thought on AI. Do you want to share that with our watchers and listeners?
Well, thanks for finding it interesting. I was just shooting the breeze there, but it occurred to me that you may have heard of this story, and this is just to add some context so it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of the story, Steve or Darren, of the computer that was fed all of the information about the Vietnam War, and the Pentagon, who owned the computer, asked, can we win the war in Vietnam? Have you familiar with this story?
Not heard that one. No. Yeah. No.
So apparently, I can't verify it. It's just, it's been in many documentaries, and apparently they had computers then. The story goes they fed all of the data into the computer about troops and casualties and the rate of things, and they left it run overnight. Can we win the Vietnam War? And the answer came back, the next day, you've already won.
Okay.
The joke being, the joke being that according to logic, America's already won. Why are you still fighting? But of course they hadn't, because of the human factor. But that got me thinking. Just today, I was on a jog, and I thought, that was a long time ago, and the Pentagon entrusted a question like that with obviously serious thought going into it. And there's a good case for saying, well, if there is a question about a wrongful death, a criminal charge or not, a grand jury in the United States for a policeman involved in the death of a minority group individual, then why not let AI be involved in some level? I don't know what that looks like, but there's this great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Talking to Strangers, and he talks about in this book how they did a test with a very simple algorithm in New York City, and that was they had the criminal record, they had whatever other case history, and the computer would predict whether or not the offender at their bail hearing would commit a crime, would reoffend, and therefore, designate whether you should get bail or not.
Right.
And they compared that with real judges that had FaceTime with the individual, and the algorithm outperformed the real judges by a significant margin. Now, it's statistically significant. It's not like 100 to 1 or something, but it was like, a significant statistical margin. And that was a really simple experiment. And it seems to me that there's a role for AI here to play like an arbitrator role or an
ombudsman type of thing. Yeah.
It's an interesting debate, isn't it? Because AI thinks logical. So you could argue that AI doesn't see the emotive side, the body language, doesn't feel the emotions as to, well, if there's a child involved, maybe it's different. But on the other hand, that actually can distort judges' results. I've read somewhere that judges tend to give rapid sentences just before lunchtime because they're hungry. They've done the research on it, and they've shown that the judges tend to be much more aggressive, much more short-tempered. And so you wouldn't believe it, actually, just because it's the time of the day, gives a clue as to whether you're more likely to be put away for 4 months instead of 6 months, or released and not charged at all. So I can completely see how AI might actually be better in some circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You don't want your judge to be any of those things.
Yeah.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Fascinating. I mean, this is AI is coming into every part of our world anyway, isn't it? With chatbots and all sorts of things. Where do you think that's going to? Where's that going to end up, Ryan? Are we not going to have human contact right down the line? We're only ever going to be talking to AI and bots, or what do you think? What's on the horizon for it all?
I think more broadly, AI is of course going to play a greater role in practical applications. Like I love NVIDIA's almost monopoly over server-side AI in big cloud data centers. Who could say what's the most efficient use of a 14,000 server data center other than an artificially intelligent computer, right? So it's being able to optimize in industrial applications like that. We already talked about predictive analytics. It's a no-brainer. I think we're going to get more bang for the buck in terms of our output from AI. We haven't seen this huge productivity boost. I think people, I remember when I was at university in the 90s, professors saying, "Oh, everything's going to be over the internet," and yeah, e-commerce is starting to catch up to where they predicted it to be, but we haven't seen a huge productivity boost. From an economist perspective, from all of this digitization over the last 20 years, I think we're going to start to see it now. When we have AI optimizing a desalination plant, for example, I'd be like, wow, we get, an extra 100 million tons of water from that optimization. You're going to see real economic return from it. But I don't think. I think human interaction, human emotional intelligence, for example, is like that's what I want my kid learning right now. That's I don't want him to be an engineer per se. If he likes it, fine. But more important, the character building, the character development is going to be so much more important, because the AI is going to be taking care of the mundane stuff.
Yeah,
can't compete. So it's going to be a question of, well, where are you adding value? And if you're a great collaborator, if you can hold your own socially with confidence, all these things that are very much human will just increase in value.
Yeah,
totally agree.
So,
totally agree.
Not worry just yet, Steve. We're not going to replace you with a virtual robot for across the pond sessions. You're okay.
Thank you for that. although some might say you sooner rather than later, Darren. But anyway, we'll worry about it. Brian, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. I mean,
thanks.
Depth of knowledge is very impressive, and I can see why you're incredibly successful at what you do. How can people get hold of you? To have a chat or to talk about some of the things that you're doing that might fit in with them.
Sure. Well, the pleasure's been all mine, Steve. Thank you guys for having me, Darren. The website is TWOMC.com. TWOMC.com.
Okay, superb. Ryan McClure from Indonesia, thank you so much for joining us. Let you get some rest. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for being on Across the Pond.
Take care, James.
Cheers. Thank you. Unbelievable, man. I mean, just fascinating subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, but not scary. I mean, we have to embrace technology. We have to embrace where we're going. But it's just, I don't know if scary is the right word, but it's certainly gets you thinking.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think there's an excitement about it. I can see a generation being very scared about it, but being able to increase that productivity, just as he was talking about, like the desalination plant, for instance, the effect of that just on the economy is unbelievable, and for businesses and keeping jobs and so on. I think the thing that people always worry about is robots or AI taking over their work, but yes. I think we just have to adapt a bit more and be more aware of, as Ryan said, where you can add value and have those skills that you just can't build into a machine. I think that's incredibly important.
Steve, we talked before the session about trying to find a funny for today. I've just realised there was a brilliant one that I should have had for today that would have been appropriate. It's a robot sat at a desk in front of his computer trying to click on something, and he calls across to a human and he says, "Can you just tick the box here that says I'm not a robot?"
That's the one we should have had. That's definitely the one we should have had.
Next week. But yeah.
Superb. What is that funny for this week then? Because we do have one.
It's probably funnier actually, in my opinion. But let me bring it up and show you. Find it. So last night I was on the treadmill for 45 minutes. Today I'm going to the next level. I'm going to turn it on.
Nice one. Nice one.
We all struggle with keeping fit or healthy diets and doing all that kind of stuff, and it kind of shows the mood of where we're at sometimes. Totally.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm just thinking of there is a joke about somebody who ran 7 miles every day or something for a week, and then by the end of the week they were 49 miles away from where they started or something. I don't remember the entire joke, but it's along the same lines. So, yeah. So our top tips this week, just based on some experiences we've both been having, I think, in the last couple of months, is about how to construct deals and put deals together. And anybody that was looking at Instagram over the weekend will see I've done a couple of posts around this, but I felt it was worth reiterating, because people, as we come out of and things start to get going back into COVID, are anxious to do work and to I don't know, maybe prove themselves in their own business. But It's all about doing a deal. Our 3 hints and tips this week, and the first one I want to talk about is about negotiating, because for me, negotiating is about understanding what each other's needs are, and then finding the common ground around that works for you both. As I said at the top of the show, somebody said to me very, very early on in my career about doing deals and making sales was, you always want to make a sale that's a marriage made in heaven, not a divorce waiting to happen. And negotiations sometimes isn't about somebody winning. In fact, in my book, it's about you not winning. It's about you coming together and agreeing on something that is solid for both of you.
Just on that, Steve, if I can interrupt. I remember a while ago we talked about Stephen Covey and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I don't know if you managed to read it, but one of the 7 habits is about thinking win-win, and he gives endless examples where people are going in trying to think win-lose. It's constant, or sometimes lose-win, but it's not about that. It's about finding something where they win and you win together. But yeah, sorry.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, that brings us on to our second tip around, everybody needs to win in a deal. For those of you in the UK, maybe not so much here in the US, James Caan's book, one of the Dragons on Dragon's Den, talks about how his father taught him that every deal he did needed to be win-win for both parties. Because you don't have, as we do in any kind of sales, you don't walk away then with buyer's remorse. You aren't looking for the loopholes. Everybody's happy with the deal. And sometimes you may not get exactly what it is that you wanted from, the negotiation. But if you can come together and you both walk away feeling this is right, then they're the things that continue. On through your business relationship. And then the third one I just wanted to highlight, and I think this goes for just not for business but for everybody, I think, is under promising and over delivering. There is a propensity in business right now for people to, I think, be scared about losing clients because they can't do something. And so therefore they can do everything, right? And it's just simply not the case. And more often than not, my advice would be, if you can't do something, but somebody that can, and you can rely on them, and they've performed this task before, is that recommendation actually comes back and pays dividends time and time again for you. Instead of being scared that you'll lose the client, you'll actually retain them because you gave them honest and an honest answer to the question, but also that you recommended somebody that could deliver what they wanted. And I don't think that happens nearly as much as it should, to be honest.
So there's almost 2 tips in there. The first tip is don't set expectations that are too high, overpromise, underdeliver. But it's almost the 4th tip is work with key partners in areas where you can't deliver. So if you can't deliver, then you could say no. You can be honest with them, which should be anyway. But on top of that, you could go and partner with someone who can deliver, not just deliver, but deliver much better, because that's their area of expertise.
Absolutely right. And that collaboration then, actually helps both of you, because there are other projects where, you can't deliver on something that this collaboration can. So I think it pays dividends all the way around. So they're our kind of doing the deal. I was going to say the art of making a deal, but somebody else has already coined that phrase, and I don't believe it's true anyway. So even some of the content of that book, regardless. But that said, so negotiate well. Make sure it's a marriage made in heaven, not a divorce waiting to happen. Make sure it's win-win. Collaborate with people that you can't deliver on, and under promise and over deliver. And people will come back to you time and time and time again. So it's how we got started, right?
Yeah, Absolutely.
So
I don't remember the negotiations. It was so long ago, but yes.
Me too. Anyway, so that's it for Across the Pond this week. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next week when we're going to have one of the guests from the New Normal book coming on, and we'll let you know who that's going to be during this coming week. But stay well, stay safe. Things are opening up here in the US. A little bit, people are getting back to normal. So stay well, stay safe. This is Steve Brooks saying thanks for joining us at Across the Pond. It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
See you soon. Thank you, everybody.